Sweet.
But I got to record it, so I sometimes forget to do that.
No, we don't have a podcast.
And we don't have a podcast, and people are like, "What the crud, man? I thought this was." There we go. All right, we're gonna record this now. It's been so long since I've done this.
Has it?
Yeah.
I thought you've been doing it, but I haven't.
I don't know. Give a sec for everybody to jump on here. There's the button.
I'll get your.
See, that's official. Means we are on
A
the
little
stage.
Forrest Gump in the background.
Got that Forrest Gump. Okay, listeners, viewers, and everybody in between, welcome to One-on-One Live with Coach Blu and our athletic director, Marissa.
Hello.
It's been a minute since you've been in that chair.
Yeah.
What have you been busy or something?
Yeah. Well, I work in this chair a lot, but just not always with the camera.
That's
on.
very true. You do a lot. We've got lots of stuff on the horizon on Team Addict to Athlete. I'm so happy for some of the things that we are going to be able to disclose here very shortly.
Yeah.
With the grants that we've received, I think there's going to be some neat things happening. I want you all to stay super close to the webpage and our social media, right?
We have said we've got some huge announcements, so please stay on. Let your friends and family know, and we will expose some secrets. They're not secrets, but expose some awesome announcements and events that will be coming. So
absolutely, and some of those are another official run that Addict Athlete's going to be hosting. I'll give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek.
I guess, obviously.
And we're calling it the No Man Left Behind, or no, sorry, the No One Left Behind, because that's kind of sexist, isn't it? The No Man Left Behind.
Yeah.
The No One Left Behind. Early on Team Addict Athlete's inception, I noticed something that happened instinctively, and that was the first person that would typically finish a race would go back on the course and pick up the next athlete. And then those two would go back and grab the next, and so on and so forth. And it became kind of this unwritten rule that they just started doing, so much so that we saw it at the prison when we did the Conquest 5K, right?
Yes.
And all these things. And it was kind of one of these I don't know, this natural occurring phenomena. And so Coach Jensen and I were thinking about this. We thought, what if we did this run where we have you run in groups of 4, I believe, is that what it is? And
yeah.
Why are you laughing at me?
Nothing.
And
just let you go.
Yeah, and you stay together as a team, so you're as strong as your team. If you're a power walker and you've got a sprinter on your team, guess what? You can't get any further than, I think, 10 feet away from one another.
Mm-hmm.
You have to finish together. And the goal there isn't to come in first or whatever. It's to have the experience.
It's a team event
of being able to
point.
Produce that team feel. And I'm excited to do this.
Helping each other, because that's how we get through life.
Absolutely.
Is not alone. We do it with each other.
And it's not going to be a quick one. It's going to be a little bit longer of a distance because you're going to have an experience while you're out there. So more information for that to come. It's going to be hopefully coming up in June or July. I can't remember. In June. But yeah, so stay tuned. There's gonna be some cool things happening with that and lots more. But Marissa, we've got some Patreon subscribers we need to, and
we have a few new ones.
We have a few new ones. I don't have the new ones on here yet. Would you jump on and grab the new ones? But I'll go through. And if you would like to jump on Patreon and support Team Addict Athlete in receiving bonus content, merchandise, exclusive deals, a lot of other things that are coming down the hopper for you, jump on patreon.com/addict TO athlete and take advantage of the tier system. Yep. $2 a month gives you all the bonus material. Anything above that qualifies you for all kinds of perks and features and bonus and stuff.
Yep. And we have portions of our recovery playbook. So if you are struggling and you want some kind of just individual help on your recovery, that's where you go. But it's also for like mental health. It's not just like substance abuse.
Yep.
Anyone can benefit from it.
It's a triad. So the cool thing too is that now comes in phase 2 of the extracurricular recovery playbook. So brace yourself for more episodes. We've had a little bit of a hiatus because of a lot of the behind the scenes things we've been doing, but here they come. So I want to give a special shout out and thanks to our super fans. They're Jerem Thurston. He's still living down there in Brazil. Loving life.
Nice, warm.
Absolutely. Tracy Whitby, Holly Davies, Scott Foster, the Foster family, Coach Chris Williams, Brett Frew, Coach Tara Butson out there in Telluride, Colorado, Steve Riggs, and the Warrior Within podcast and personal development by Sensei KP.
Also, I went to lunch with Brett Frew because you called him out.
I did.
And said he's here and you want to have lunch, and then you didn't come with us.
Brett,
so he wanted me to call you out.
Okay, Brett, me and you are going to lunch, man. Absolutely. Sometimes Coach Blu needs a dose of his own medicine.
And Brett's the good one.
And he'll do it to me too. And I respect that. Yeah. We got the rookie level subscribers, Kenny Roseman, Earl Dyer, and Share Bear Sherry Polson out there trucking the mean streets of the USA. She's
our UPS woman,
putting the throttle down.
She's a rock star driver.
Absolutely. Our pro level subscriber. Thanks so much, Gary Thurston. Special place in our heart for
you,
Gary. And our championship level subscribers, we have Shad and Freya Robinson and the Robinson family, and Ron and Dee Loesch. Thank you both so much. Congratulations, Team Robinson, for completing the Lake to Lake relay.
They did an awesome job.
Yeah, we had Heath and Rob and Rinda and Stephanie all pushing Emma
miles.
Yeah, and I was out running the half marathon, and it was cold and windy and rainy, and they got the same dose of that.
Yeah,
so they got things done fast. So congratulations on the Lake to Lake relay finish, you guys. So our new subscribers, who do we have new that's come online?
So we have a couple new ones. We have Casey Bills.
Thanks,
who is
Casey.
Upper Deck. Tina Williams is a fan. And then we have Mary Inuk is
That's awesome.
A new rookie.
Yep.
So thank you guys and welcome to the Patreon family. So you guys also understand if you want to become a Patreon, we also have, you can, instead of paying a monthly payment, you can pay up front and get a 16% discount. So whichever level you choose, you can just pay up front and just pay for the year already. Yep. And then you're just set rather than, a bill every month that they just come and take it out. And you save some money. Absolutely. So, but you still get all of our content. So that is a great option. It's patreon.com/AddictTOathlete.
Yep. That's great. So thank you all so much. Marissa, anything else coming down the pipeline? We've got our order of shirts in for all you athletes that ordered them recently. We'll get those out to you probably on Tuesday.
We have them and we'll get them dispersed soon.
Absolutely. That being said, anything on the agenda that you've got before we jump into all this?
I'm trying to think. No.
It's good. We've been busy, been traveling a lot, right?
Yes.
So I want to jump into a little bit of a few discussions today. We've got some stuff that we have your questions that we have here too, but there's some stuff that I want to address today too that I've noticed about just recovery in general. As you know, Marissa, we've had a huge influx of overdose deaths, specifically with fentanyl, and we've seen that ugly substance come in and start to just rip and tear families apart.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it more and more in places that would probably otherwise look as though they were peaceful and non-touched by addiction. I mean, we're starting to see like massive arrests being made and seizures of these kind of pills and substances. The thing is, this day and age, people out there, I need to warn you that you do not know what you're getting on the street these days. Yeah. This stuff is cut with fentanyl. And they are pressed to look just like any other pill. So you've got to be extremely careful. Fentanyl is a very deadly substance.
It's really quick, really fast.
And we're seeing it more and more. But with that.
But we also are still continuing, sadly, to have overdoses from other things, other substances, but also heroin. We have a gentleman we know that just passed away yesterday,
which was heartbreaking.
We send out our love to his family.
Absolutely. And so this is still an issue that unfortunately is not getting much better. And so with that in mind, there's been a lot of advocacy that we've been able to do recently, talking to a lot of people from the state level all the way down to some of our local governments and some of the people that are just here in our own neighborhoods. It is very important that you feel comfortable to share your thoughts, your stories, your ideas with people that will listen. I would love here soon to provide any kind of public speaking training that you might need or want so that you can begin to tell your story. Part of that would be a process of, coming on to be part of Addict Athletes podcast. because it's important for you to have a voice and to know that it can be heard. Sometimes we get super nervous and scared about, sharing our story in public because it's the number one fear people have of sharing their story publicly.
Public speaking.
Yeah. The old joke, and it's still very true, that the fear is number one on the scale and quickly followed by death. So it's like they say that you'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy, which is kind of like, what?
Well, because that doesn't scare you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oddly enough, you're weird.
But this is the thing, is I screw up and I mess up quite a bit, but the fun stuff is you roll with it. And the only reason I've been able to do what I do is because I do it frequently. Use your voice, people. That's what we need. And if you'd like tips or you'd like to maybe give it a shot, let me know. I'd be more than willing to sit with you and maybe do some recordings and stuff, and maybe even share your story in a recording that we could put out for you.
Where you don't have an audience.
Because I think your voice matters. And all of you have these stories that can inspire people. I mean, overcoming addiction is one of the most amazing things you can do. Why keep that to yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if this is something that you're interested in, please let me know and we can arrange something like that. But I want to have more voices and more advocacy down that line, because if we stay quiet and point fingers, then we'll probably just be anchored and stay put.
Yeah.
But you don't know who will listen and who will hear.
And they need to hear it. And everyone's story has something that's a little different. And sometimes people hear something 50 times, even if you're saying something that's the same, but the time they hear it from you, something's different.
Something's different, and it works. So it's a big part of this. Now, the cool thing about Addict to Athlete is that we are non-anonymous, and we made that very, very widely, I guess, open and aware of when we first started the program. And I found that because of that, we get a lot of opportunities to share a little bit about our pursuits, our paths, our thoughts and ideas about recovery in general. And the cool thing about that is you never know when this is going to happen. I've had a couple of interesting experiences this last couple of weeks. The first being when we all went down to run the rock and roll 10K in Las Vegas. And we were doing this as what we would call an erase and replace moment. Let's share our erase and replace philosophy first, Marissa. How do you explain it to the people that might not know what it is?
Yes. So Addict to Athlete was based off a philosophy. You kind of coined the term erase and replace, because if you have an addiction, if you have not even that, a negative behavior, a negative thought, negative thinking, you have to erase it. And if you don't replace it intentionally with something healthy, then something else will fill its void really quick. So the point of us, is to replace it intentionally with something good, so that can then benefit your life, benefit your behavior, everything around you. So we talk about erase and replace with, obviously, addiction, but also, other negative behaviors, whether it's cutting, whether it's negative thinking, whether it's negative self-talk, anything you need to do something to replace it with.
Absolutely. So when we remove the pain, the trauma, the situation inside, there is like a chasm. There's a hole there. Yeah. And a lot of times people will try and fill that with one thing, right? Yeah. Maybe it's, I remember working with a kid years and years ago who took his addiction to a different level. He erased that, but replaced it with like cars. Mm-hmm. But then he got so consumed with building his car, buying parts for his car, spending his time building his car, that it in and of itself became a huge distraction, because it was a way to avoid other responsibilities. Yeah.
And sometimes people do that just to avoid other emotions, which is what addiction and usually substances do, is to numb out,
absolutely,
negative emotions. So if you're replacing it with something that's negative just to be a distraction, even if it's better, we also promote another big word, even though our name doesn't always say it, but it's balance. Absolutely. So our Addict to Athlete name is to be replaced with anything. Addict to mom, addict to scholar, addict to artist. That's another sister program we have. It's anything. The point is that we build on that. And we have a lot of things that we try to encourage people to do, because again, it's the same thing. If you Addict to Athlete and you erase it with running, and then you blow your knee out and you can't run, that usually causes some serious problems with people.
Absolutely.
If you're not careful. So replace it with a lot of things, it's like, this is where we have our coping skills toolbox. You have to have a big plan of lots of things that you are encouraging and building yourself up with.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we had the opportunities several times this last couple of weeks because we've been doing a significant amount of traveling. The first being down in Las Vegas, and it was a great experience to go down in what I would say would be the capital of addiction to a certain degree.
Yeah, lots of different ones.
And represent Addict to Athlete in such a manner. With some of the things that we did prior to the race, just being out there involved, we could see addiction quite heavily. And, you could smell addiction quite heavily in some locations, right?
Yeah, they've got the substance there. They've got the gambling. They have the sex. They have,
the rock and roll,
eating
everything.
with the buffets. You have every addiction in Vegas.
Absolutely.
Flying high.
The cool thing about it too, though, is that there's been this huge shift over the last, 20 years, 30 years, even in my career here, that you can see the potential and the love in everybody there. Like, I'll be honest with you, like, even as Josh and I were talking about, as we recorded his podcast, that's going to come out Monday, we're talking about some of the homelessness and things there, and just the significant need of like relationships, and just to see people. And not see people because of what they're drinking or smoking or handing out on the strip, right? But to see them as real human beings. And that's a hard thing to do because we are sometimes in the self-preservation mode and we put the blinders on. These are all real people. And there are some people that can use substances and be okay. And there are those that can't. To me, to each their own. My thing is that we're all human inside. And so the cool part about what we were able to do is represent something so significant in maybe a little corner of someone's life. Because as Josh and I were running out there were quite a few people that were taking notice of who we were and what we were doing. But it was also funny because you contrast that to us running, very much sober and, advocating recovery. And there was other people running with like cups of beer and stuff.
Oh.
It was.
You should have seen the guys that were cheering by me.
Oh, I'll bet.
Oh my goodness.
I'll bet. And so it was kind of a funny thing, but there's this situation that I really want to talk about that I want your input in, because I haven't really even discussed this with you. About what happened with Josh and I when we were at the end of the strip, because we tried to tell you about it. And I put a video out, and even the video doesn't quite do it justice, but it puts me back in that moment. But it was this weird kind of thing, right as we hit that "Welcome to Las Vegas" sign, but we were going out of the city.
Yeah.
There was this amazing sunset out there in Vegas. It was gorgeous. And it was the music. The song was "We Can Be Heroes," and not the Nickelback version, but I don't know the girl that sings it, but
yeah, I know what you're talking
I would sing it to you, but we'd probably lose a lot of the listeners here. The sun was going down. There were planes landing, and I was just still, I'm like a little kid.
He's like
I'm
a
like
kid
little boy when I see plane. I'm
Whoa,
like,
how does it do that?
It just blows my mind. And there's thousands of people around us. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was excited. We were all on the same path. It was like we were leaving, to a certain degree, that addiction stuff behind, that chaos, that glamour, that glitz, right?
Yeah.
And it was just, something just clicked with both Josh and I, and it was very spiritual. And I don't even know how to explain it now, because it was so significant. And I tried. I got on a live video and tried to share it with the athletes.
You had a spiritual experience.
It was 110% spiritual. So we turned the corner, we started running back towards the city, and it was still very much vibing, and we were very much in it. And you could see the sunset and then see the strip lights turn on. And man, it was just so much. And I thought, you know what, we really are these agents of recovery here. And beyond that, we're all human. We're all on the same path. We're all just trying to make it. Does that make sense? We're all just trying to be there. So Josh and I went through, we finished this race, and I had this feeling, and I didn't share it with you. I didn't share it with him, but I'm like, I could do so much more. I could do more. Like, I'm talking about like more advocacy, more life, more running, all this stuff. And I knew that we were going back down to St. George for the Lake to Lake relay / our 2-year wedding anniversary. Happy anniversary, by the way.
Yeah, happy anniversary.
I've known you for that long. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
I can't believe we've hung out with each other for 22 years and I still like you.
23, really?
Well, let's be honest. So when we got home from the Vegas and unpacked to repack to get the kids to come down with us, I had this thought of like, I know there was a half marathon. They call it a heavy half marathon.
Yeah. You just up and registered for this.
I just up and registered, and I'm like,
race a few days away.
I'm like, this is kind of weird. I just did this 10K, and that's only 6 miles. Half marathon, dirty half marathon. This heavy half.
More than like, 13.
Yeah. And I just had this feeling like I knew I could do it. And it was kind of a weird thing because I'm like, I don't like doing stuff by myself like that too much. Like, I like running by myself.
Yeah. But not races all the time.
But not races all the time, because it's kind of lame.
Yeah.
You know, you want someone out there just to know you're there and that kind of stuff. But and then I saw the flipping weather report.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Rain and then
rain and
possible snow and really cold, and which is rare down there.
Yeah, I'm thinking, what have I done? But in the back of my mind, I just knew I could do this. And I hadn't really trained that much. And I was like, what was this push? And so I got to the starting line, and I haven't even told you this yet, because to me, I thought it's just a conversation, but it didn't hit me until yesterday. I got on the bus as you dropped me off, because you got up at 5 a.m. too to drop me off. And I got on the bus, and usually when you have someone you're with, you guys both just take a seat. But I felt like Forrest Gump, is this seat taken? And I'm like having
to find our own place. Yeah.
And this guy, I sit down next to this guy, and he scooches over, and he's like, have you ever done this one before? I'm like, no, never done this one. Like, I'm usually running the Lake to Lake relay with my team. And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, I've ran that a few times. He's like, but this, it's like, you're going to love this. And I'm like, well, trail run. I mean, just got done running a 10K and everything. And he's like, well, how many times have you run Lake to Lake? And I'm like, well, a few times. I run with my team, Addict Athlete. And he's like, Addict Athlete? I know Addict Athlete. He's like, I've run Squaw Peak.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, we've run Squaw Peak. I said,
we have two aid stations usually every year.
And that's what he said. He said, there's an aid station number 7 that's always the best. And that was Don Hutchings.
Yeah. Who we just lost. And Brooke and the kids. And he's like, I love that aid station, And he's like, and I love getting to Windy Pass and seeing them up there. He's like, your team is strong. And he's like, I heard that the guy that was running that aid station passed away, and he wouldn't be there. Yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, we did. We lost him. It was heavy. And I said, it's families, they're doing their best. And they're just there. They're kind of trying to get things moving. And I don't know if they're going to participate this year, but who knows? And he was like telling me about like the relationships with that really were probably just moments in time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Just like a small break.
But he remembered Dawn and Brooke, and he remembered, Windy Pass aid station, and he's seen us out there. And it was cool because I'm like, that's weird that, even here that there's someone that's familiar with us. Yeah. Does that make sense? And he didn't say he had an addiction or anything. And so he told me a little bit about the course and stuff. And I was completely backwards. I had no idea where I was because it was pitch black. And I'm still not really sure where this
you didn't know where you started or ran most of it.
But as they got off and he went the different way and I went the different way and they started, I was just like, this is intense. And there was a very spiritual, the whole run was spiritual. I'm putting the video together now.
That's beautiful.
And it was hard. It was uphill a lot. It was freaking windy as all get out.
It was cold and then warm and then freezing and then rain and then hail.
Then the last push was the very, very end. It was like this gale force wind that was like pushing us to the finish line.
Almost blowing down the finish line.
But man, I'm telling you, Marissa, I don't know what it was, but it was this weird like belief that I was going to be able to do it. And I did really well. And I'm like, you did. Kind of a crazy thing because
mostly for not training a lot, like great pace.
The first time I didn't ever really doubt myself. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I woke up that early, I'm like, do I really want it? Because I was so afraid of the rain, getting wet and being cold. But man, there's this weird belief, and the belief part that I could finish this thing without a shadow of a doubt is like, that's also what I felt like when I knew it was time to stop the tomfoolery with the addiction and leave it behind. And I've talked to a lot of athletes about this, a lot of listeners and a lot of guests we've had on the podcast, that it can be as simple as you saying, I'm done, and meaning it.
Yeah. Well, and I think most people that I've ever talked to, and I ask a lot, if they have any kind of long-term recovery, yeah, they may have slowly started towards, okay, yeah, I went to rehab, I was forced, but they got to a point where they made a decision and they knew it. They knew they were not going to use again.
Absolutely.
And that's where life changed, really changed for them, because they could see themselves living sober.
I like that. So what's the difference then between being in a constant state of deciding versus making the decision?
Well, when you're still deciding, it's like you're still walking on the fence.
Yeah.
You could fall on either side.
Yeah.
And it's just really happenstance. It's what are you looking at? And, if you're looking, let's say we are walking on a fence, like tightrope walking, whatever you're balancing. How do you balance? It's where your vision is. So if you're balancing on both sides and you look down on the addiction side and you look down on the sober side, you're going to fall.
Absolutely.
You absolutely will. So if you keep thinking about the time when you used to do this and the time you would do that, and you keep looking down, you cannot balance very well or very long. If you watch tightrope walkers, where do they look?
Yeah, they look straight
ahead.
They
look straight ahead. And that's really the key, is you quit looking at people on the sides. You quit looking at who's, the crabs in the bucket.
Yeah.
And you go, this is where I'm going. This is my view. And this is what I want.
And as hard as this is, athletes, listeners, you do it alone. You make the decision alone.
You have to.
I mean, there are people around in the bullpen, but you make that decision for and by yourself.
Yeah. And it can start with motivation, like for my kids or for the judge or for court. It can start that way. Absolutely. But for long-term, consistent, recovery, it is your own.
And I'm noticing, and this is kind of a segue too, that I want to jump into, is that there's also this pull of, can I heal from the trauma? My theory of addiction, and that is that people don't use simply because it feels good. They use it because they're covering something that hurts.
Yep.
And the trauma that we face, guys, to each their own. I mean, some of it's going to be significantly heavier than other people's, but trauma is trauma.
Absolutely.
And to say that I work in the field quite frequently with folks that are like, well, I'm in a group and I hear someone talk about like child abuse or sexual abuse. And, I only got yelled at by my family,
Yeah, I didn't have
what
the severe abuse that they had.
But guess what?
Pain is pain.
Pain is pain.
And we cannot know and understand what anyone's pain is.
No, we can't. And so what I've noticed is that sometimes it's hard to let that stuff go. Because we have some mixed emotions about it, right? They're like, if I forgive the person that inflicted the pain on me, does that mean I'm okay with it? No, it's not.
Yeah.
But I've seen this a few times recently in conducting some EMDR sessions where the trauma was released when they forgave the person that inflicted it on them. And that was very real for my own trauma. When I realized that the stepfather number 5 or whoever it was, whatever number he landed in, when I finally felt like I'm letting that go, because any worldly thing that I try to do to him or feel about him or wish upon him won't compare to what's going to happen on the other side of heaven, right?
Yeah.
It was that feeling of being able to let it go. Now, do I forgive him? I had to. That wasn't an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
It didn't make it right. It didn't make it wrong. It didn't make it anything. It just made it happen. Yeah. I was done carrying it. And so there is this, believe it or not, there is this TikTok that I found that really kind of blew me away. And I've heard this quite frequently as of late, which is, people that experience trauma typically have these empathic behaviors. And sometimes it's worn as a badge of honor. Sometimes it's, it's very like a connected thing. And I feel as though like you and me and many people that we associate with have the ability to connect with people on an emotional level. But the way this was described specifically to the deep empathic people, I realized that there was a little bit of something that was out of tune, out of sync. And I want to share this real quick and see what you think. It's just a little blip of a TikTok, so hopefully the listeners can hear this.
For people who have a hard time with these boundaries, and for people who call themselves empaths, it's actually the same childhood experience. It's that in childhood, you've got an unpredictable adult. And that unpredictable adult, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, presents enough of a risk to you that you have to be hyper attuned, because every move they make or don't make has some implication for yourself. So what a lot of people don't like learning about empaths is that because of this traumatic type of a childhood experience, they learn how to pay hyper attention and hyper attune to anything in the room that is not okay. That's why you're never going to meet somebody who's got this thing going, who's like, I just love being around people because I feel amazing, because they're going to walk in the room and instead of attuning to the person who's happy, they're going to attune to the person who's got the issue, because that's where the risk is. In case you want to know why empaths always feel like crap. That's why.
Kind of an eye opener there, isn't it?
Oh, I've always thought that, but I think there's people out there that maybe either misunderstand being an empath and don't understand the depths of what that is or why, or don't recognize all of it behind it, because what it really comes down to is usually that childhood trauma. And we've talked about this many times, that a lot of PTSD is where you're in a situation where you're living life, like a regular person would. Like we go back to the caveman and they come out of the cave and there's situations where it's unsafe and they have a bear that chases them. They run back to the cave. They're safe. They're fine. But somebody with PTSD and a lot of trauma lives in the cave with the bear.
Yeah.
There's no safety. There's no reprieve from the fear, the anxiety. And so, a lot of empaths are able to read people really well. They're able to see and understand things on a deeper level, but it's usually out of safety and protection, which is exhausting.
It would
exhausting.
It would be.
Yeah.
And there are several people that I know that I would say are deeply empathic because of that. And the part of that stood out to me was when they said that they go into a room of happy people, but they find the one person that's not, because again, they're reading the room and trying to label it as such that like, this is a good vibe, but there's one person that's not there. And
so I need to watch for them.
I need to watch for them.
I can help them. Or, like if you're raised with a mom with, this often happens with people who have a parent who's like borderline.
I've noticed.
Yeah. So they're raised with a mom, and it's not that they want to always protect themselves, but they need to help mom feel better.
Right.
Because otherwise mom's going to go nuts.
Yeah.
And so I need to help her feel better, and I need to talk to her and calm her down, or help her, feel something better.
Or we take upon ourselves that pain, right?
Yeah.
And we do that so freely because
so that it can get it better for them.
We don't want them to have to carry it alone.
Yeah.
And so,
so a lot of people, people that struggle with addiction have done that.
Absolutely. I think everyone that struggles with addiction to a certain degree has that, because that's the one thing everyone with addiction has in common is that they are the junior counselors and therapists of their families and their friends and their social systems. So why is that, right? Well, we don't want that person to feel this way. And so we'll take on that burden. And I've spoke about this many times, but there's another TikTok that mentioned this. And I want to share this one with you because it was the exact same kind of thing where we say that, look, there's a reason why you in recovery have a hard time even still setting boundaries, because you know what the pain is.
Yeah.
And you love this person, you care about this person, you don't want them to carry it.
Yeah.
But whose burden is it to truly bear?
Yeah,
right?
It's a dangerous place.
It's a very dangerous place. And that's kind of the sad thing about this. And I've used this same language with a few of my clients, but I think this gal, she said it very well with what her therapist said to her.
So I want to share with you something that my therapist told me that absolutely broke my heart. ever since I can remember, I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted to be there for people, for whoever needed it, no strings attached, to just vent. And my therapist was like, well, why do you think you do that? And I was like, I have no idea. And she said, maybe you're trying to be there for people because no one was there for you.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do you do it?
Because you don't want anyone else to feel the pain that you have.
100%. So as we're walking downtown Vegas and I'm seeing addiction and I'm seeing all this kind of stuff, it's like there's a tremendous amount of hurt.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hurt still out there. There's a lot of fear still out there. There's still so much animosity and frustration and sadness that goes on,
Yeah.
And it may look as if it's a good time, but it's just a distraction. So I hear that kind of stuff and I feel this kind of stuff.
I felt bad seeing a lot of those people down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look like they're having fun, but they're masking horrible pain.
And that's what it was. And to a certain degree, I'm not saying that everyone that was running struggled with addiction, but when Josh and I were down at the end of that strip and we were feeling that was something very strange and unique that only we felt because everyone else just kept running.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And I don't know if they felt it, but just didn't stop or whatnot. But I thought, this is intense.
Yeah.
And so I also know that when we can feel deeply like that, we also lead ourselves into becoming a little bit vulnerable to that kind of stuff. But that's the cool part about being human, isn't it not? Like to be able to stop and to just bask in the moment and everything just align, and just to know that this is a healing process.
Yeah.
On this trail run that I was running, there were several spiritual moments that just kind of blew me away. From the way the sun cast its rays through the clouds, to some of the things that I noticed, to thinking about the conversation with that guy on the bus. There was so many cool things that kept me motivated. Even the pain of charging the hills and the cold temperature on your face, and then out of nowhere, it just got sunny and warm.
Yeah.
And there's one part in this video that you'll see where it just looks like addiction. On one side, you got this blue cascading red rock sky, just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And literally split down the middle. On the other side is this dark Mordor looking kind of like, clouded storm. It's coming. Yeah. And I was at mile 13 and I'm like, this stupid heavy half, man, I should be done by now. And I started getting a little bit distracted with it.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, well, there's nothing we can do except go through it.
Yeah.
And so there's so many things that the last couple of weeks have kind of shared with me, but it boils down to each of you who are listening to this for some rhyme or for some reason. Either you have a loved one that's struggling, you yourself are attempting to overcome addiction. Maybe you're on the path. Maybe you haven't crossed the starting line yet. You have something in you that we all need. And that's your emotional strength. That's your willingness to push through the hurt.
Yeah.
And to come out on the other side. We need more underdogs.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, and again, this is for you to understand that being an empath, if it is draining you, that there are some things that you need to get off your chest. You've got to get through it, or you're going to be just this emotional sponge the rest of your life that cannot hold everything from everyone.
Yeah.
Which is, what oftentimes even people that get into recovery, they're doing well, and then they continue to take on all these emotions and of everyone else, and they end up relapsing because it's just so overwhelming and so overloading that you look into a counselor, that you start looking into our recovery playbook, that you do something to help yourself heal from that.
Absolutely.
From that trauma, so that you can go in, because I'm extremely empathetic. Extremely. But I also have learned to have limits and to know what I can handle and what I can't. And that I also, number one, need to take care of myself, or I can't take care of anyone else, but it's taken time. That girl sharing that story, that's what happened to me in therapy.
Yeah.
The therapist was like, okay, well, it sounds like, because Blue's not the first boyfriend I've had with lots of problems.
What?
I had with lots of problems.
Go figure.
Pretty severe. And I would always think I could save them. I could help them. I could fix it. And so the therapist was like, Marissa, what happens when he gets better? What happens if he doesn't need you?
I remember that.
Yeah. And that was like, oh no, what do I do? Who am I if I'm not taking care of this person? You know, I had a, the empathic thing, but also a lot of that codependency. Like, I need a project. I've got to help him. I've got to take care of him. And I had to really work through that. Like, how can I help, be there for you, support you, and encourage you, but not do it for you and not keep you sick so that I always have a project.
So then if you can remember that, because we were talking about this over our 22-year anniversary dinner, we're talking about this, you recognizing that and being able to, like, because you told me, you're like, I'm not doing this for you. You're going to have to do this yourself, but I'll be here.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do it for you. That was a lot harder for you to do than maybe I gave you credit for. Huh?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I didn't know you were full of crap. You were just like, you wanted to help me. You really came off that you were like, no, this is your burden to bear, but I'm going to support you. I'll be by your side, but I can't finish the race for you. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah. And I had, how do you help without enabling? We have a blog on our website about that, because it's difficult.
It is,
because you love somebody, and how do you have those healthy boundaries? But, somebody that's an empath that's taking all that in too much, it's dangerous. Mm-hmm. You can be empathetic and loving and supportive without taking on everyone else's pain.
I think that's one of the reasons we in addiction lie so much too, is because it's not to try and get out of a consequence. It's because we're done wanting to hurt people. But it's like, it hurts more.
Yeah.
And so I understand that concept. And so
because they get away with it, they think, oh, if I keep lying, then I won't hurt them
absolutely
more. Not looking at the long-term effects.
I see that a lot with pornography addiction, and thank heavens that's not been something I've ever had to deal with, because that one is such a soul crusher, that it's almost like, it's almost like the shame base of it all is so deep, and the scars can get so heavy that, like, it ruins that emotional, intimate, physical relationship. And so the lies get even more and more thick.
Yeah.
And you being able to hold the boundary with me, even though I was very much sober at the time, but had been living a life still very much intoxicated by the lifestyle, the lying, the manipulating, the hiding. Behavior. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would have made the progress I would have if you would have given me a way out, because I looked for it. Yeah. I did. I looked for it. But when the reality kicked in that the source wasn't me, that it was learned behavior through trauma and through self-preservation.
Yeah.
That's what sucked.
Yeah. Is that because it helped you take it and separate from, I am such a bad person because I've done all these bad things too. I've learned some negative coping skills because of my situations and
you
my
and
experiences.
I both know an individual that had said this one time when we were working together, who said that he is still terrified of the little boy inside of him, and he hated him.
Yeah.
And I remember both me and you looking at each other and being like, what?
Heartbreaking.
Because I look at that little boy inside of me and my heart bleeds for him.
You understand him now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that make sense? Like, who's going to cry for the little boy, right? I mean, that's the Antoine Fisher story there.
Yeah.
It's like that little boy was beaten and abused and neglected and abandoned. And
he needs somebody
to
care for him and that's what you did as an adult, is you ended up going back and being able to help your inner child heal.
Absolutely. Through therapy and through inclusion and through relationships.
Yeah.
And a lot of work. And so I think that I too am empathic to a point, but I don't walk into a room and feel the energy of the one person who's hurting.
And I can do that sometimes, but I also go, I can't take all of it from them.
Yeah.
And if I have enough energy and time to go and try to lift them up and help them, absolutely. But if I don't, I need to worry about myself first.
See, and I don't know, I think I differ on that just a little bit. And the reason why is because you didn't do that to me. You basically said, follow me.
Yeah.
Come try this. You didn't pull me up. You didn't push me. You just said, if you want this, come this way.
Yeah.
That's the same thing I think I do with the people that I work with. I'm not going to do it for them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, I'm going to say, if you want this, there's a more excellent way to achieve it. And if you're going to do it, let me show you what you can truly do.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the thing I love about being a coach is that I can train you, I can help you, I can motivate you, but it's going to be up to you to put your shoes on, lace them up, and go when the gun fires.
Absolutely.
You know, and so there's so much to this as we were, I don't know, just having these experiences over the last couple of weeks. And you know, on the video that I'll be posting here soon of this run by myself, there was a few very, I don't know, emotional kind of things that I was talking about trail running, and how trail running is a lot like you can trail run and get the same benefits of EMDR, because I was noticing as I was running, you have to scan the trail. There's rocks and roots and
left, right
things,
safe and balanced.
And so you're scanning constantly. And I'm like, this is kind of a crazy thing. I'm thinking I know why I needed to do this so much is because I needed to recharge.
Reminder. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, there's from that experience we had in Vegas to that trail run, there was a lot of like, sadness and like, you know, missing the people that aren't here, and this rebuilding thing that we've got to go through, and just like all kinds of stuff, but be able to leave it behind on the trail. And I left it all out there.
Yeah.
In fact, it was funny when I finished, one, because it was wickedly cold and that wind was like a hurricane, right? I grabbed my medal, turned around, and we ran to the Suburban. I didn't do anything else. It
was so bad.
I was like, no, you know, and that's kind of a funny thing. It's because it's not basking in the accomplishment of like, look what I just did with fist in the air and pump. It was like mission accomplished, on to the next. And I wanted to get home and be with the kids.
Yeah.
You know? And it was funny. I got home and they were all just waking up and like, you've already ran? I'm like, yeah, man.
They're like, didn't you have a race today?
Yeah. Through battle, I already did
it and I'm
done. So that was kind of a cool experience for me. But it was one of those times where for some reason, I guess I just needed that for me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, we went out and we caught one of the transition stages for the lake to lake relay with the Robinsons, and it was just awesome to see. And it was kind of cool too, as I was running and I could see kind of where I thought, I'm like, okay, I think I kind of know where I'm at this point, knowing that that's where the road passes that the team just ran past before. And I'm like, how cool is it that I'm crossing a road now that had just been crossed hours before by them, team crossing team. It was just one of these things where, guys, there's a lot more. There's a lot more about you than you really might believe. There's so many connections. There's so many experiences to be had. That's why sobriety is so amazing.
Yeah.
The things you learn and the metaphors that you create, they will change your life and others. You know, like everything has meaning to it. There's so much purpose in this. Like Dan Millman says, there are no ordinary moments in life.
Yeah. What do
you know?
Yeah. Start looking. You know, if you're feeling lost, if you're feeling like there's not answers or help or whatever, start looking and you will find it.
Yeah, there's that part in The Way of the Peaceful Warrior where he slows it down and says, there's never not anything going on.
Yeah.
And he like looks into this scene, and it zooms into like, you know, people communicating, people turning pages in books, butterflies flying, bees going down to, you know, to pollinate flower. There's so many things going on. And it's cool when you wake up from addiction and start seeing it with your own eyes, that there are no ordinary moments. That's one of the most beautiful things I think I took away from just my own recovery in life. That's like, there's so many. So we're running down, you know, Vegas Boulevard, the strip, if you will, and everything just aligned, and we stopped.
Slow down.
We stopped and just took a moment. Like in that book, The Way the Peaceful Warrior says, what time is it? The time is now. And where are you? Where I'm supposed to be. Where you are right now, listeners, is a necessary step for whatever comes next.
Yeah.
Whether you're sitting in your car thinking about going to get a drink, whether you're, laying in bed listening to this, wondering how you're going to stay sober, whether you're getting ready to go to court because you know that the gavel's coming down to send you away, whether you're receiving your diploma, finishing drug court or treatment, where you are right now, wherever you are, is a necessary step.
And it's time for you to, like you say, slow down, wake up, become aware of why you're there, what's going on around you, so that you can share more of that self-awareness about what do you need to do next.
Yep. Team Addict to Athlete is growing, and we will be having some amazing opportunities for you, the listeners, here very shortly, where we'll be operating at a much different capacity to help. If you need help, reach out. You can find us on social media. Marissa at addicttoathlete.org, yep. Blu at addicttoathlete.org. Our numbers are on the website, addicttoathlete.org. You'll find all kinds of cool stuff there. Our backlog podcasts. You'll find all kinds of information, and you'll find some of our future plans that we have, because we'll be obtaining a home base here very shortly. So, anything final that you want
to? Possibly, we have a listener that may be coming up with a question about inner child. If not, do you have more? Do you want to expand on that?
Well, the inner child.
How do you healing that inner child?
So, as maybe they prepare for their question, one of the things that that we talk about in therapy that I've always kind of felt really, really hard about was, let's say that you bump into old Doc Brown and you sneak into his DeLorean time machine and you go zooming back to, your age, maybe 6 or 7 when you're in grade school. Mm-hmm. And I always pose this question to people because the answer is so significant. And I say, if you were to walk into your elementary school, right as lunch is getting over and right as you're going out to play at recess, and you bump into the 7-year-old self, knowing what's coming down the pipeline
and what they've already been through,
and where you are today, what would you say to that 7-year-old you? Marissa, this scares a lot of people.
Yeah.
They have a hard time with this.
This is why one of my all-time favorite movies is called Disney. It's by Disney, The Kid.
The Kid.
If you're struggling with inner child, go watch that movie.
Go watch it.
I'm guessing it's on Disney Plus. We have it on DVD because I love it.
Yeah.
It is so good.
So most people say that they would say, hey, it's going to be okay. And I'm thinking, you're talking to a 7-year-old. The 7-year-old is going to look at you and be like, what are you talking about?
Who is this guy?
And granted, you don't have a lot of time because, everyone's going to be like, hey, adult, what are you doing here? But what would you say to that person? And a lot of people say, well, mom's going to go through her addiction, or when you find your dad in the basement and he's passed away, just know it's not your fault. And they go through all these things.
Yeah.
But there's one thing, very rarely do they ever tell themselves. You know what that is?
Yeah.
What is it?
I love you.
Very few people say, I would take a knee, get down on that level. I'd give me a hug, and I'd say, I love you. Because you, as a 7-year-old, would feel that because it's something very uniquely you. Does that make sense? So that 7-year-old would feel it and believe it. But here as an adult, you still don't love yourself. Why? And only a handful of people into the thousands I've asked that question to have passed. Does that make sense?
I've heard it rarely. I do this assignment a lot in treatment. I've used it a lot with groups and watching Disney's The Kid, and then I have other assignments with it, and it's difficult, and I've rarely heard that.
Yeah, because as I look back at that, for me, as a 5-year-old little Blue, right, that was right during like the pinnacle of abuse for me with the stepdad Paul, just a horrible person, the devil himself. To know that someone, even a stranger, loved me, wow. What difference that could have made, because it took a long time to fall back in love with myself.
And I think that's why a lot of people really struggle with that too, or they go back there and they think, but I want to help and protect them. They want to be that empath again. And that can't involve emotions. I've got to tell them how to prepare and what to do and what to be ready for, rather than Just love them.
Just love them. Absolutely. And that's the thing too, when you get into relationships, even post addiction, is you can still love and feel people. You really can, but you do not have to take on their burdens, because they need to be able to break out of that themselves. You can be there as a support, as a coach, as a team player, but you can't pick them up and run them across the finish line. They have to do it themselves.
Yeah.
It's like they say about, it's the same thing as like taking a chrysalis and trying to break the butterfly free. If you do that, it will die. The struggle.
The butterfly needs the struggle to live.
And as the butterfly circus, the greater the struggle, the more glorious the triumph. You've got to be able to overcome your own stuff.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%.
Like if I would have, had someone pick me up and carry me across the finish line of the half marathon, that wouldn't have had the same feeling. Does that make sense? So
you don't go get a medal from a race you didn't finish or didn't even do.
I've done that. I mean,
you can have it
before and put them on people. Hey, congratulations on running that.
Is it worth it?
Yeah. And they're like, no, it doesn't have the same kind of feel.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a hard one. And I think sometimes we have a hard time with that because, especially in Disney as a kid, it's got Bruce Willis in it. And when he sees him and when he finally figures out that it really is him, the first thing he does is mock him. Right.
Yeah.
Lisp and being overweight and just being awkward and clumsy. And the person that he's kind of courting is like, I think he's perfect. He's like, how is he perfect? Listen to him.
There's so many things wrong with him.
Yeah. So if you have any kind of inner child issues, I highly recommend watching Disney's The Kid. It may just be a fun show for some people, but for someone that's gone through childhood trauma, it will wake you up.
It's incredible.
Because what he finds too is that the mechanism that he thought caused the trauma wasn't even close.
No.
Just like me and channeling a lot of my anxieties and dislike to clowns.
Yeah, that wasn't the trauma.
That wasn't the trauma.
You thought it was.
What the trauma was a failure of my mother to protect me when one was scaring the bejeebus out of me.
And in multiple other situations in your life.
Absolutely.
That same scenario repeating itself.
Yeah. And it will. And if you don't take care of it, the cycle will continue and you'll do it to your children and your children will do it to theirs. And it will continue to turn until you consciously make the effort and the decision to make it stop.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how we got onto that, but there you go.
Great
I think that there's a lot there. There's just been a lot of emotion when we got so much stuff going on in the world. Gotta remember too, that the most important, news story is you and yourself and how you're getting through this. You don't have to do it alone. You got a team behind you, Team Addict to Athlete. That's what we're here for. Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
I want to thank you all for listening. This will be a podcast we'll post here shortly. So jump on and share this with anyone. I want to thank Radio Ronan and the Radio Ronan Network, specifically old Josh Hansen. What a great experience I was able to have with him. Just a fun person to share this with. Thank you so much, Josh. But to Panda and to Chandler and to Chunga, thank you all for allowing Addict Athlete to be part of the Radio Ronan Network. Athletes, until next time, please go turn that mess into a message.